Hey there, Mike Shope, Evan Krautwurst, joined by Jared Smola of Draft Sharks tonight. I want to say something about our amazing timing as we go live at 8 Eastern, right on the heels of this shocking trade, perhaps, Devontae Adams to the Raiders. It shocked me. But pretty much the whole week or 2 weeks, something has happened constantly, and maybe you just could have been on in the middle of the night and there would have been some shocking development to react to. We'll take our good timing and start there, get into several different Dynasty topics with Jared, as this is our new Thursday night episode each week in the Deep End Dynasty. Thanks for joining us. One of these weeks after that intro, Adam, our guest is just going to be gone. Like, it's not going to be Jared. He's not afraid, but someone else is going to, the Sharks are going to appear and they're just going to be, empty background.
Scare them away.
Yeah, they'll be scared off by the amazing Shark intro, but not Jared. How are you, Jared?
Doing good. Recovering from a nasty stomach bug. I've been playing catch up all week here. Monday, I didn't get out of bed other than to get to the toilet. And then like the 3 or 4 days since I've just been trying to like catch up on like getting food in my stomach and like enough water. I'm like just getting my energy back today. So it's been a week of catch up for me with all this free agency news like you were talking about.
Well, that's too bad. I mean, Adam, we do have a lot to talk about. We were on Tuesday going through some free agent moves, but I think none as exciting as what just happened.
Yeah, I am absolutely thrilled. Nobody told us that the NFL has turned into a big dynasty league. And I'm just, it's sensational with the free agents and the pickups and the trades and the people who are signing with teams but aren't signing with teams, and the 40-yard times that aren't accurate, that are a second off. Like, it's madness. When did that begin? The 40-yard dash times being off and the people signing with other teams and then reneging on the site. Like, I don't know what's going on here.
It's crazy. But Jared, if the NFL were a dynasty league, the other 31 owners, or most of them, would be sitting at the bar just laughing at the Packers and they're talking about how to get them out. Because when do you do, as a dynasty owner, when do you do anything like what the Packers have done the last 2 years? You trade up for the backup quarterback that you don't use, and you sit there with both guys. You make a couple runs, you lose both times. Maddening seasons. You hope, if in this particular imaginary dynasty league, there's regular season money, because the Packers would win some regular season money, but then they go right out, nothing, no trophy, no even finals appearance to show. And then so they what do they do this offseason? Every other owner in the league tells them you got to rebuild or whatever, go one way or go the other. The Packers go right down the middle. They sign Rodgers, which, okay, that's what you're going to do. Go win. It already is like a dynasty league. That's why we pattern these leagues after real football, because the Packers haven't made sense. They should have done one thing or the other. And now the question tonight appears to be whether this was out of spite. I mean, could it really have been? What are they doing?
It's like the Packers are a win now dynasty team, but they've been trying to force themselves into rebuilding mode for the past couple of years now, like you said, between the Jordan Love and the Devontae Adams moves now. Ian Rappaport reported that Aaron Rodgers knew this was going to go down when he signed the contract. He knew, it was too far gone with Adams, and there's too much friction between him and the Packers, and that he was going to be gone. So I guess Rodgers is okay with this, which is crazy to me. That tells me Rodgers just came back for the payday. Like, he's not going to go get his championship now, I don't think, without Adams there.
Is there a move, guys, they can make? Like, wide receiver in free agency, it was never that good. Allen Robinson, but he's gone. I mean, Juju, what can the Packers pull something off that would have you guys thinking they're the same team?
I mean, if you go, they didn't. Zadarius Smith's gone, right? Devontae Adams is gone.
Not necessarily.
Well, that is true.
Smith. True. He was supposed to sign with Baltimore. Now he isn't.
Now he's back in the market. But let's just say they didn't want Smith. I mean, all this money they could go get, like you said, they can go get Juju and Will Fuller and just 4 or 5 receivers, decent ones that are the same price as Adams, at least for a year or two. So I don't necessarily think it's over. Odell, maybe Odell comes back from injury. They got would they get two first round picks here? Can they go get some?
They got one. They got the Raiders' first round pick this year, which is 22nd overall, and then they have 28. So they have 2 late second. And we'll get into the wide receiver class later on here. But to me, it's a kind of underwhelming class at the top. Like I don't think there's no Jamar Chase. There's nothing. There's not a T. Higgins in this class to me. I think it's there's no one in this class that's going to immediately come in for the Packers. I don't think, and be someone that can even come close to replicating what Adams has done for them.
Yeah, I'm just thinking maybe there's a way that they can do quantity over quality, because really it's been Adams and nothing else. So now there's no Cole Beasley in the first round of this NFL draft. You know what I mean? You just go buy him for $2 million and you got yourself a slot receiver. So, I think there is a way when you've got Aaron Rodgers. There's a way that you can maybe they get some donkey to take Aaron Jones off their hands for a stud receiver or something. Who knows?
Will Fuller is a little bit interesting. Adams is so good at pretty much everything. There's no comp to him as far as I know, but Fuller is a big player if he's able to stay healthy. 2 years ago he did, and last year was such a mystery again with him. But he's somebody. There might be a trade they can work out. I mean, they should be another dynasty parallel. I mean, they should be thinking about winning a championship.
Right.
But I mean, they must have been convinced, I guess, that Adams was just not going to play, and they were not going to do the long-term contract for him and Rodgers. So very strange. Well, in terms of dynasty, you guys, Jared, so Adams was what, and immediate reaction is what now?
He takes a hit. I mean, he has the chemistry with Derek Carr, which is nice. When they played together in college, obviously. I think, Carr's capable. He's 2 steps, 3 steps below Aaron Rodgers, but he's a capable quarterback. I think most importantly, though, despite Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller being in Vegas, I think Adams is going to come in there and dominate targets to close to the extent that he did in Green Bay. And that's what we care about most. He's going to get the volume. The efficiency probably drops off a little bit. But to me, he takes a hit, but not a huge hit. Like for 2022, he's still going to be inside the top 10 wide receivers. I believe. I haven't updated projections yet. He was 2 in our rankings. I think, he drops, 6, 7, 8 spots now, probably.
2 in Dynasty. 2 in Dynasty. He was
2 in redraft.
A
few spots lower in our Dynasty rankings. Yep.
Okay, sorry, Adam.
Jared, if you could do that right now live on the pod, show us all how you work through that. That would be great. But yeah, no, I agree. I had just recently made a trade on the FFPC Dynasty. I traded a second next year and George Kittle, so it's tight end premium. A second in 2023 and George Kittle for Devontae Adams and a third next year. And I did that about a month ago. So, and I had Aaron Rodgers, the super flex. I have Aaron Rodgers, and I was loving that stack, but that stack is gone now. So I still like the thought of having Devontae Adams over Kittle, because I think you're right. I think he's going to get a million targets, but I mean, Waller's really good and Hunter Renfrow's really good, and he has a rapport with Derek Carr. And I'm not saying Adams isn't going to get his, but wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 might be a little bit high. He might fall to 3 or 4 for me, and Derek Carr isn't, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. You guys like playing this game on your show, I think. So let's play it. For Dynasty, would you rather have Devontae Adams or Steph Diggs?
Adams. You know what? I'll tell you why. Because just a couple of quick thoughts. He did get the contract. I mean, he is going to be theirs for 2 or 3 years. He's 29. So I don't think that's so bad. It's on the cusp a little bit. And can every game in that division be 50-49? I mean, for a couple of years with the quarterbacks and the way those teams have loaded up. I mean, I know they all have edge rushers too, but I kind of like the smell of the Raider passing attack with Adams there right now. Adams was also this beautiful, from the 2-yard line. He was almost like a goal line back in addition to being wide receiver 1. And so I don't know if Carr can deliver on that, but as much as I like Diggs, I think I would go Adams there.
I'm gonna go. We're gonna do a first take here, right? This is where I pick the other guy just because. I'm gonna go Diggs because he's attached to Josh Allen, and his main competition is OJ Howard, Gabe Davis. Like that's his main competition for now. That could change the first round. That could change in a week if they go get Will Fuller or something. But I think Diggs is a little bit younger than Adams.
Yeah, he is.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I would lean Diggs here. Give me another one, Jared. Give me another one.
A year younger.
So I'm working down our dynasty rankings now. So we had Adams at 5 before this move. And I think he's going to, we have Diggs at 10. I think that's kind of where he's going to settle. At 11, we have DK Metcalf. I don't know who you guys would rather have there. That's tough because it's a young guy. You're saving 6-7 years with Metcalf. But who do you guys like? Adams versus Metcalf.
Metcalf for me.
Same here. Same here.
Yeah. He's great. And I mean, they could have Matt Ryan by the end of the night for this year, and maybe get some volume out of him this year. If Seattle blows it up and he gets traded, that's not so bad. That's what is that, a 5-year difference? So
yeah, I mean, and those comparisons to me always come down to where your team is at. Like if you're a dynasty team in win now mode, I'd rather have Adams. But if I'm a middling team, or definitely if I'm a rebuilding team, I'd take Metcalf there.
I could see, because on that point, I mean, that's the name of the game in dynasty, right? So Adams for a pick, upper middle first round this year so it's like the next step from Metcalf, who's whatever he is, 24 and proven, but questions about his offense. The next step from there is if you have like the 5th pick of the draft, and that might be one of these receivers we'll talk about. It definitely would be if you wanted it to be. If you're not that good this year, maybe you do that. But I've been guilty of dumping too early on teams that look maybe okay, just not great. And you get caught if, like Travis Kelce is an example. If Travis Kelce 3 years ago, I think that's when I got to know you guys and was saying like, okay, I'm out on Travis Kelce and tight end 1, tight end 2, barely the last 3 years. That happens too sometimes. So it can seem smart, but it doesn't have to. They don't have to fall right off the cliff.
Yeah, and dynasty owners discount older players in trade talks. Like, you're not going to get as much for Kelce as you think you are, even 2 years ago, because he was 29 years old. People start to get worried about the age, so their value in trades just gets lower as they get into their later 20s.
Yeah, I completely agree there. I just want 4 teams from the AFC West to make the playoffs. That's what I want. Give me that. That'll be impossible, but that's insane. I love the arms race going on there right now. I love it. I love everything about the NFL right now. Unfortunately, I get updates on my phone all day long, and I look and half of them are baseball. And I want to just like, where do I mute this crap? If I didn't know baseball was in free agency right now, I would have muted it weeks ago. But, who knows?
Sensitive subject. Listen, that 4-team in one division idea is not completely out of the realm. You have one extra regular season game outside the division, so it's 6 division games to 11 now, just a little bit more than 1/3 of the games. And if you have, like, if Buffalo dominates, if whichever teams in the other divisions sort of run away with it, and those other Western teams, they all beat each other up and sweep the rest of the conference and beat the NFC, you could see it. You could see 4 teams with winning records there, and then the 3 division winners all waltzing to the playoffs. It just every one of those especially tonight, got even better tonight with Adams. Like every one of those matchups is good, and those are some of the best uniforms in the league too. So those games are already watchable, no matter who's on the team.
They should all be primetime games. Every AFC West game this coming season should be a primetime game.
I can't stay up anymore, or otherwise I would endorse that. So Davante Adams to the Raiders. You mentioned just one more thing on this, while I'm thinking of it. You mentioned the other skill guys on the Raiders, Waller, Renfro, even Edwards. Isn't Renfro the big loser here?
I think so. Yeah. We had him in the mid-20s in our rankings for 2020 before this trade, just because he had been getting those big target shares. He does have the connection with Derek Carr, but yeah, I think Waller is more likely to maintain something close to his previous target share than Hunter Renfro is.
Yeah, he probably is too. I feel like these slot receivers, once they become, elite slot guys, and I think Hunter Renfrow is an elite slot receiver. I feel like that rapport with the quarterback, man, the quarterback loves having that. Even in a situation, I think what you're probably going to see is a situation like Tyler Boyd, where that Boyd's a stud slot guy, and then they get Higgins, and then they get Chase, and Boyd's still okay, but for fantasy, he's not able to produce consistently. So I think you're going to get a situation like that. But who knows? Maybe they turn around and trade him. It's been a wild offseason. Every time we say something, it changes. But if it stays the same, Renfro's probably taking an L there.
I think the two Raiders I want now are Adams and Brandon Bolden after the last 24 hours. Not really. Yeah. I like Jacobs too, guys. I liked him in these early drafts. I mean, I think he was sort of a classic player whose results were better than his reputation. And there was no real change there with the offense, except maybe better coaching. So I thought he was in a good spot. Maybe he still is. If the offense is better overall, then he should be in a good spot. But Adams is so good and tight that could be bad for Jacobs. Well, from Devontae Adams being traded, which we did not see coming, did you? Half an hour ago, to why what we wanted to focus on tonight when inviting Jared was rookies, and in particular rookie wide receivers, which you spent a good amount of time studying and sort of ranking them. And just to get us started here, Jared, to me, there are at least 5 receivers that I probably have seen ranked first by somebody. That's more before the combine than after. How do you see it? And did the combine really clarify much?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think there's no like flawless prospect in this year's class. They all have some warts, and I think that's why you can make a case for maybe at least 4, maybe 5 guys as the number 1 receiver in the class. Combine didn't change much for me at receiver. There's been a lot of studies done by smart people that show there's really not much correlation between measurables and success at wide receiver. It's the measurable stuff is more important at running back and tight end especially. But at wide receiver, we care more about college production, mostly college production, and measurables don't really change much. So no big changes to me based on what we saw at the combine.
So Treylon Burks, first name up here, would he be your number 1?
No, he's my number 3 right now. And still going through the process right now, but I have Drake London and Garrett Wilson ahead of Treylon Burks. I have concerns about Burks' ability to separate, and I sort of have like PTSD with this because I loved JJ Arcega-Whiteside, and the knock against him coming out was he doesn't separate, he does too much contested stuff, and that's at least partly what's killed him at the NFL level. So that's my only concern with Burks is a lot of his production at Arkansas came after the catch. He's awesome after the catch, and he's a big dude. He's 225 pounds. So I think that's going to translate to the next level. He's good going downfield. He can do the contested stuff downfield, but just in the shorter intermediate ranges, I don't see him separating quite enough to be someone that I'm going to put as my number 1 wide receiver in the class.
Yeah, I really like Treylon Burks, but I totally get that point there, and he's a nice run after the catch guy. He's got to get that separation though, and I think again with a guy like him, if he can get a quarterback that can throw with anticipation and put it right on the numbers, I think that could certainly help him. So, man, where these guys get drafted, it plays such a vital part in at least in their early success.
It's interesting how Treylon Burks gets compared with Deebo Samuel and not JJ Arcega-Whiteside after the combine. The comps are always so flattering. Yeah. What do you think of that? I mean, you are immersed in it. Do the comps tend to make you laugh, or do they work? I mean, do you want to fight against it? What's your general disposition when it comes to those comparisons?
Yeah, they're always optimistic, and that's because I just think when you're trying to come up with a comp in your head, you start at the top of the list of wide receivers. So who's the first big good after the catch wide receiver? It's Deebo Samuel or it's AJ Brown. So that's kind of who gets comped to Treylon Burks. I don't think he's nearly that good of a prospect. I get in terms of size and play style. I see some AJ Brown, but again, I think Brown is a few tiers above Treylon Burks.
Is which of these guys becomes the first receiver drafted almost impossible to predict? I mean, is that really a function of NFL teams and their preferences and their depth chart, who they want that's maybe different from what they have?
I think so. And there's definitely different flavors with these guys. Like, so Treylon Burks and Drake London are the, big prototypical outside wide receivers. London is similar to Treylon Burks. I like him better because I do think he separates better on some of the shorter stuff. And I think his production profile is a bit stronger too. But then Garrett Wilson is the biggest concern for me with Wilson is size. He's only like 183 pounds. But he's definitely that, smaller, shiftier wide receiver. So I think it comes down to what the team is looking for. That's probably going to determine. And I think it's going to be one of those three guys. It's going to be Burks, London, or Wilson as the first guy off the board.
So is there a certain body type, whatever the overall package looks like, that you find to be sort of the most reliable, either from an NFL standpoint or a fantasy standpoint? Do we want the guy who can separate and, blow past the defense more than we want the bigger sort of different types? Seems just on the surface, there are so many examples of each that I'm not sure one is really better than the other. How do you decide that?
Yeah, I think ideally you want a big wide receiver who separates, right? That'd be ideal. Yes. I tend to be more attracted to the bigger wideouts, and again, that can get me in trouble with guys like Arcega-Whiteside. But if you just look at the top of the fantasy rankings every year, to me, it's a lot of bigger wide receivers. They tend to score more touchdowns, and there's numbers to back that up too. There's a correlation between weight and touchdown scoring at wide receiver. So that's what I'm attracted to. But it's size is just one part of the equation. Landing spot is huge, and team fit and targets available is so massive. So it's just one piece, but I do tend to lean towards the bigger guy, all else equal.
Yeah, I think when you got a bigger guy, that helps with the quarterback that's more of the pocket passer, that or the guy that's more I don't mean the bigger guy, the more kind of old school receiver that's big body, like you said, big body, runs good routes, gets open, because it helps when you have a quarterback that's a pocket passer that wants to throw on time. When you get these smaller guys like I always go back to like Antonio Brown, where the guy, he ended up becoming a great route runner, but early on when he was still doing really well, Big Ben was buying time and finding him. And I think those smaller receivers, like you said, the Chris Olaves, the Garrett Wilsons, those guys, can get open on like a scramble drill or whatever, and they can make huge plays in fantasy and huge plays for the NFL teams, but they aren't necessarily like the old school, like I'm going to beat you with my route running. I'm just going to, I'm going to hope my quarterback can buy time, and then I'm going to get open and get loose. So I think there's different styles of receiver. And I think that's why these smaller receivers have been so successful recently, is because there's so many quarterbacks now that can buy time with their legs. And I think that's really helped them to be able to succeed on the next level.
I think, and with the officiating now too, just, allowing no contact in the secondary, like that's helped the smaller guys too. They don't have to deal with the physical coverage as much as they had to 10 years ago.
So we've talked about Burks and London. How about the two Ohio State players, Wilson and Olave? Wilson might be higher up. You've said that on your rankings. Yep. That's the case on your rankings as well. Is it tricky when they're on the same team?
It is. And, their production this past season was pretty similar. And Wilson outproduced Olave by a tad. Jackson Smith and Jigba outproduced both guys. He's a sophomore. Yeah. He's going to be in next year's draft class. He to me is very likely the top wide receiver in next year's class. I haven't, dug into the whole class yet, obviously, but Wilson gets the edge over Olave to me because he did what he did last year as a junior. Olave was a senior. Olave is an interesting case to me. If he had come out last year and a lot of people thought he was he would have looked a lot better as a prospect. He actually took a step back this past season in terms of raw production, in terms of all the efficiency stuff, yards per route run, PFF grade, all that took a step back this past year as a senior. So that's kind of my hang up with Olave, like what happened last year. But Wilson has a pretty nice production profile, had a big junior season alongside two other future NFLers, which you always like to see.
Look at Ohio State with those two guys, the other one you mentioned, and Jamison Williams for a minute.
Yeah. Williams could not get on the field, behind Olave and Wilson and a couple other guys. KJ Hill was playing ahead of him for a while, but yeah, that's impressive that Williams couldn't even get on the field at Ohio State.
Robert Zima asked, do you guys take into account league trends? I'm thinking NFL league trends over the past 2 years to project ahead in Dynasty. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. Like it's the NFL is changing. It's going 5 wide. It's got more athletic quarterbacks. And I think these smaller receivers can succeed.
Yeah.
And I don't know about projections, Jared, that's your world, but like, how do you factor that in when you're doing projections?
Well, when I sit down to do my redraft projections every, February it is now, I start by spending a few days just looking at league-wide trends, like league-wide passing rates, situation neutral passing rates, personnel usage, how often teams have 3 wideouts on the field versus 2 tight ends. So I start there. Target shares by position, like the average team throws 60% of their passes to wide receivers and how that changes throughout time. So I start there, and that kind of helps me set baselines when I go in and start projecting all these teams. Like, everyone's going to kind of eventually regress to these league-wide baseline numbers. So I definitely take that into account when doing redraft projections, and those redraft projections fuel our dynasty projections. So yeah, it's definitely part of the process for me.
The overall trend in the league has to be toward more receivers, passing formations, coaches getting younger, seeing through or looking at the data, passing games worth more, the value, winning teams, not just the simpler, got to have a great quarterback to win, but just like what the Rams are and what the Chiefs have been and what the Bills are now. I mean, the Bills of all teams, they were the last team that was going to come around, but then they did, and overnight they were they were dynamite. Is Pete Carroll still coaching is a question, obviously, that you want to be asking when you're setting down to do all these rankings. And it turns out, yes, is the answer to that. I'm thinking they might go with 1 wide receiver formations this year, base personnel, but it's early. You just feel like he's trying to make a point. So the big 4 receivers, I mentioned Williams. I know we're only going to talk about those 4 guys 2 specifically, but there are more names. George Pickens is another one. I mean, you have at least 4 more that people like that could be, well, probably second-round picks at best, or late first in dynasty in rookie drafts.
Yeah, I think the 6th guy that could sneak into the first round of the NFL draft is Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. He's another smaller guy. He's more in the Garrett Wilson mold as a player. And that Sky Moore is the analytics darling. He has the huge target market shares and all that stuff that we like to see. Haven't watched him yet, so don't want to speak highly or negatively on him at this point.
Analytics darling. Adam, cross him off his list.
He's out.
Adam's not here for guys who are like basically really good. And
that's right.
Prove it.
That's right.
It's more
he doesn't like guys that put up numbers which score us fantasy points.
No, he tries to stay away from those guys.
All right.
So the NFL draft is still a little bit more than a month away. Before we let you go, Jared, so you've got these rookie picks, and there's so much happening that dynasty players, I mean, this is why we play. So you can be working on your rosters year round and trying to make deals and trying to build a winner. What do you do right now? I mean, last week I had this one train of thought that I'm not even sure I was able to articulate very well, but I'll try again. I'll try to keep this short. It's logical sense that after the draft, you feel like you have clarity as to how the guy should be ranked. Take Edwards-Helaire a couple of years ago. Okay, he's our number 1. You look back on that and, you'd rather pick someone else. I think if you could do that over, it just feels to me, if you have that clarity post-draft and you might want to, sort of move up to get guys because now they're going to be on the right offense, the so-called right offense, then before the draft, maybe is a time to go in the other direction and try to somehow take advantage of the uncertainty. So again, I don't think I explained it very well, which might simply mean that it's not a good take. What is the right approach to now?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying completely. And I think in my experience, and I'm sure it differs by league and by owner, obviously, which is always what's so interesting about Dynasty. There's so many different ways to play, and each league is so different that there's definitely no hard and fast rule to any of this stuff. But in my experience, rookie picks grow in value and then are at their most valuable right after the NFL draft, right? When we have certainty on these guys, people have their rankings, whether they do them themselves or get them from elsewhere. And they can really see, okay, if I'm trading for the 105, it's probably going to be Garrett Wilson or, it's going to be Chris Olave, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think if you are trying to acquire rookie picks, now's the time to do it. Because, people aren't as familiar with the class yet, and they don't know where these guys are going to be playing. If you're looking to ship them away, I would try to wait until, right after the NFL draft, really anytime between the NFL draft and the start of your rookie drafts, I think is the best time to be trading away rookie picks.
I like it. And with one quarterback leagues, there'll be lots of skill guys, at least receivers picked in the first round. We're going to have visions of how they're going to fit in on teams. So, yeah. And this year, Adam, also, you and I have talked about this, I think. It seems like everybody has agreed next year's draft is better. So I saw one today where a player traded their 107 in this draft for a first next year. And usually, I mean, you would go a round up, right? You trade a second this year for a first next year. But people seem so convinced that next year's draft is a lot better and a lot deeper that I'm seeing trades like that happen now. So I don't know. Is that overreacting to that news? Everything is some sort of judgment on how you feel, which way the wind is blowing, and then what do I want to do about it?
Yeah, I feel like that was the sentiment, a couple months ago, right? That this year's draft isn't going to be as good as next year's draft. And then I think, every running back ran a 4.35 and every receiver ran a 4.32. And all of a sudden, I think people are starting to come around to the fact that that some of these players are probably pretty good. And then I just don't I don't want to be a hypocrite and say, oh, next year, I don't watch a ton of college football, and I couldn't tell you a player that's even going to be drafted next year. So I like to kind of see it with my own eyes first before I judge the talent coming out next year, because I couldn't tell you a running back or receiver that's going to come out next year. So, but the sentiment is that next year is going to be better, and yeah. So I mean, if you're a big draft guy and you're already locked into stuff like that, probably the best dynasty players probably are. I mean, some of them play Devy, where they're drafting kids in 5th grade that are going to play on their team. So it's like. That's where you can get a big advantage, and if you really study the future draft classes and stuff like that. And but yeah, I think people are kind of coming around to this year's draft. To me, what's interesting is where are the players going to land? Like I have a dynasty league where I have the 2nd rookie pick, and I really want Breece Hall. And if Breece Hall goes at 1-1, which he probably will, I don't know what I'm going to do. I hope another running back or another receiver lands in a really good spot. Or to me, that Breece Hall pick is head and shoulders better than the 102. So maybe now is the time for me to go attack and try to get that 101.
I swear every year it's next year's class is better than this year's class. I don't know what it is, but I hear that every year. Yeah, and maybe it's right this year, because again, I do think this year is relatively weak. But I think people overrate that. Plus, there's the opportunity cost of having to wait a whole another year just to draft a guy.
Right.
That you still don't know how good he's going to be. So I'd rather, in most cases, I'd rather just keep the current year's pick unless I'm getting a big upgrade, like Mike said, at least a full round. If I'm trading a 2nd this year for a 1st next year, that's something I'd be interested in. But I'm not going to trade a 1st for a 1st next year.
Well, quarterbacks are a part of that judgment too. I mean, that's where it starts. Running backs this year are supposed to be like that. We're supposed to be weaker. But quarterback, last year you had the first 3 picks and whatever it was, 5 or 6 go in the first round.
Yeah.
And what do you think about drafting quarterbacks in that first round of the rookie draft without it being super flex? So you only start one. You got a 12-team league. It's not something I've been wanting to do, but as I look at a dynasty league I'm in, and this is going into year 5, boy, there's been so much turnover. Think of all the different places we've been in with Carson Wentz in those 4 years. You think, oh, I'm all set. He's like, he wasn't Allen, but he was Jackson or somebody 4 years ago. I don't have to worry about Goff too, and he's on the perfect team. Whoops, they played for 5 teams combined already. Those 2 guys, and maybe are both shot. So it changes pretty hard. Do I want to be? Is it when I have an extra pick where I might use one on Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett, or does it depend on the guy? Do you have a philosophy when it comes to this?
For me, in one quarterback dynasty leagues, I'm only interested in quarterbacks that I think have top 5 upside. And so that probably means they have to be able to run the ball. Because to me, I don't want to draft Matt Ryan, and he's had an awesome career, but he's quarterback 12 every year in fantasy. I can trade for that cheaply in Dynasty. I can find that off the waiver wire in some Dynasty leagues. So I'm only going to take quarterbacks that I think have league winning upside. I do think Willis has the upside to do that. Yeah, I think he also has a super low floor. And maybe he sneaks into the end of the first round of these dynasty rookie drafts because of their rushing ability. But yeah, in general, I'm not looking for, the safe 10, 15-year starters at quarterback. I want the guys that are going to help me win at the position.
Right.
Yeah, same here. Unless it's super flex, I'm not really looking to really ever take a quarterback, unless it's maybe like an Andrew Luck where it's a can't miss, everyone, saying he's a generational type guy. I'd rather, just like Jared said, I'd rather trade for somebody and just go from there.
That's a little bit of what Lawrence was.
Yeah.
Lawrence was able to run, and he still is, but
Yep.
man, the guy who seemed like such a sure thing, and now still questions, but I'm generally positive on him. I feel like you want to trust. Are you?
Yeah, I'm big in on Lawrence this season. I'm just going to blame Urban Meyer. Like every year of Lawrence's career was a success until last year. They're putting pieces in place around him. You can argue, how much they're spending and how good the pieces are, but at least they're adding weapons for him. Like you said, Mike, he can run, and he did it last year. He ran for like 300 yards last year. I think that's kind of what he's going to give you, for the next 10 years or so. So I'm definitely big on Lawrence. Not sure how cheaply you could buy him in Dynasty, but it's probably worth sending out an offer.
Is there one skill piece on that team you like the most? I mean, ETN, I've been drafting a lot of him.
Yeah, I don't want to. I told myself I was done with Evan Ingram, but I'm probably back in on Evan Ingram. You look at Doug Peterson's history with tight ends. He, throughout his coaching career, has targeted tight ends at way above league average rate. And man, Evan Ingram, he first-round pick, one of the better rookie seasons we've ever seen from a tight end. And then just sort of, he's had the injuries, and then he had Jason Garrett to deal with, and Garrett just totally misused him the past couple of years. He's still like 27, 28 years old. He's on a 1-year deal, so he's got plenty of motivation. Well, I'm curious to see how high he climbs in ADP. But I'm gonna be in on Ingram for one more year and probably get burnt again. But I'm kind of pot committed at this point. I gotta give it one more shot.
No, I don't think you're getting burned on Ingram. I think you're right. Coaching has a ton to do with it. Like you said, Peterson's used the tight end significantly in his recent history. So, they went out and they got Evan Ingram and so, yeah, I mean, the coaching in the Giants was just terrible. Used him improperly. If he's motivated, he's still young to 27. Like he's a freak athlete at the position. I would just like to see them kind of tighten up the amount of guys they're going to be throwing to. That's the problem to me is they've got, if Visca's still there, you got 2 running backs there that can catch. It's and all the receivers that they just brought in. It's going to be tough.
I'm just sitting here thinking, which one do I want on Green Bay?
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
If Green Bay comes around and does like sort of an optimal thing, they're going through depth charts tonight. Like
Visca, send Vic. I think Visca's basically done in Jacksonville. I mean, I think to me, Christian Kirk is a slot receiver, and that's where he's been.
Yes,
his most effective in the NFL. If that's the case, I think it's going to be Marvin Jones and Zay Jones on the outside, and then Christian Kirk in the slot. And I think they might be done with Visca, so he might be available to trade for.
Yeah, I think there are 100 ideas that are interesting. He definitely could be available. He should be available with what they've done. Can I get Paris Campbell on the Packers? Is someone that can do that?
Very easily, I'm sure.
Easily, maybe. The Colts GM was sour on him. He hasn't been able to play, so can I trust him, or words to that effect? Ooh, that would be, that one guy in fantasy this year that everybody was done with, and then suddenly, pow, he gets a different spot, and oh yeah, we were high on him all along, but we just forgot about him or something. I'd love to see that. All right. Well, you're busy ranking things, so I want to ask you to rank your top 100 receivers based on their viability of a trade to the Packers tonight. I know you're busy.
Get to work on that for you.
Yes, you're just starting to feel better, so we don't want to overwork you. And you took the time out to join us tonight, so thank you, Jared. Nice to see you.
Oh, it was great. This is kind of like my second home as a podcast, so good to be back on.
Home away from home.
The deep end is your second?
Second home.
You're welcome anytime. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
All right, see you guys.